Peace is the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. I just wanted to speak to a concept that I read in a book talking about racism without racism. And it's the rise of colorblind racism as the dominant racial ideology. And, referencing it with this book and this movie that just came out called Birdbox Expose. I think this movie really spoke to generational racism and conversations to, make it through. Maybe it was a code on how to, elevate yourself or find a safe spot, so to speak, um, to be blinded to everything that's happening because what's really happening is a rise of power that, you know, cannot be denied. And so it's a whole bunch of different themes that's playing out in this movie. The movie being called Bird Box, and all you gotta do is do a quick reference of bird or, you know, a caged bird or something like that, and that brings you straight to Maya Angelou's book. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and if this is the opening scene of the movie and setting the tone for the movie, which is actually a caged bird. So what does the caged bird symbolize? The caged bird symbolize racism and trauma, and racism and trauma being a non-local force. See, trauma isn't something that you have to actually experience. Trauma could be seen through people in a neighborhood can experience the same trauma off of one event. Because trauma is non-local. People throughout the world can receive trauma by watching one news story or one thing, like, say for instance, Alton Sterling, something like that. That can create trauma through a whole sense of people, and that trauma can be felt based upon you not even watching the video, because that's just how energy works, and that's how trauma works, because it affects you even if you're not around it. So when you speak of concepts like white guilt, you don't even have to be a racist to experience white guilt. You could feel like everybody is the same, and you just lived a life. But the same way that racism works, where you're, being persecuted or put in an abstract situation that you wouldn't normally be in, but for the sake of the matter, we live in a society where racism exists. You're being put into a negative situation. You may not have no control over it, the same way you may not have control over the guilt that you experience, by being, a part of the dominant society or being a part of the American institution. And so it must acknowledge the historical racism, as Shelby Steele states. It must acknowledge the historical racism. So if this movie, they're walking around with blindfolds, like, and I could be reaching or I could be on point, it's really up to you. So if the dominant society must acknowledge racism, what's gonna happen? Then, the people that they so if the dominant society says, you know what, we were wrong, racism exists, then everything has to overturn. And so they have to give up that power, and the other side has to get their power back. And so from that, all hell breaks loose, right? At least for them, or at least this is how they're imagining it, because, if the shoe was on the other foot, they probably, would expect this. But generally, who knows what the future is going to be with, discovering this newfound power. I'm not the one who's creating this power or speaking of this power. I'm just speaking of this movie in the sense of, It wasn't destroying everyone. It was a select few of people, and it was just a small part of, the movie that we got to see. We didn't get to see how this thing was playing out in the whole world. So, you know, not acting like the movie was, for real or anything like that, but 45 million people watched this movie in a weekend, so there had to be some psychological effect. It wasn't just a movie, a bunch of people putting on a stage play. That movie had a purpose and it had a goal. And so, you know, and it seems if you look at it, it makes you go crazy or it makes you want to hurt yourself. No, it makes you kill yourself, what was stated in that movie. And so if you look at the world and you look at all the suicide, someone must have to figure. If you look at the death of teens in the world, like just overall, like, there's a lot of different, you know, epidemics and crisis that's going on in the world, and on top of all other type of shit that's happening. And it's like, why is this happening? It shouldn't happen this way. If everything was so Brady Bunch and everything was so well put together, then why is people so depressed and people so out of it and people feeling some type of way? You figure you don't have anything to be sad about, and then on the other side you may not have anything to be happy about, but yet and still you find ways to be happy. You find ways to have a complete and fulfilling life. And some people who can't even understand having spiritual power, because they only know about having financial power. They only know about having, physical power or material power. They don't know nothing about having spiritual power, and therefore, when they look at it, they go crazy. And it is nothing that they can do to defeat you or to, you know, stop you. So the metaphor there is that they might as well just go kill themselves. And another part of that movie that was like hella disturbing to me was the fact that they had a black man in this movie named Tom. And he never had a role where he was practicing self care. You figure he was in the wilderness for 5 years and he had a crisp lineup. It should have been a scene where he was at least lining up his beard, at least lining up, you know what I'm saying, lining up his fade. But no, he had no scenes where he was shown in a point of self care or having a point. His whole point was to simply serve the dominant society, and when it was either the dominant society or him, it was going to be the dominant society, no question. And to the point, like, when before he committed suicide, he looked to Mallory, he looked her deep in his eyes, he snatched off his chain, he said, "I love you so much." And it was so beautiful. And Mallory just looked at him. She ain't say "I love you" back. She ain't say "no, don't go." She ain't say nothing. She just looked at him, and he went out there and did what he had to do, die for the cause. And so, don't go out like Tom. For real. If I was talking to my wife too, I was like, if we was in that situation, like, I'm gonna do it like Tom. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm sitting there confessing my love to you and you just look at me like I got 18 heads, or like I better hurry up and get outside and kill myself, I might change my mind. So, I just gave her a fair warning. Like, look, if I say, I love you, just tell me that you love me back and everything gonna be cool. Don't play me like Sandra Bullock, for real. So overall, man, you figure you have a concept as big as racism in a movie, right? A concept as big as racism. And I'm not the only person that thought about this. You can check. my wife told me Tariq Nasheed put out a video I didn't get a chance to listen to. It's an article on the Root that speaks to this, and I'm sure other people can see this angle. So hopefully I'm not the only one speaking to this, but I didn't listen to anybody critique this video for this reason alone, that I wanted my own personal point to be documented on this. And whoever it offended, whoever it pissed off, I really don't care, because this is really critical to understand that, if racism is invisible, if racism is psychological, what does that mean? That means that they don't gotta, or they can't be overtly racist to you anymore. Like, they can't call you niggers, they can't hang you from a tree, they can't do anything like that to you no more. So the only way they can be racist is to psychologically be racist to you and kind of put you in subservient positions, or have subservient heroes, or trick you psychologically and not point out things that are clearly racist, or take your energy, which is beautiful, which they said in the movie, is so beautiful, right? Mom, right? A lot of different positive synonyms regarding its energy, but it made you want to face your fears and things of that nature. And how could facing your fears in any plane of existence be a bad guy? I don't know. But this is the world that we live in, where people would do anything and everything not to face their fears, or to come to grips that we live in a racist world. And don't want your children to know that racism exists in the world. And maybe that your children have the opportunity to make a change in the perception in the world that we live in. And it's something that, of course there were only actors in there, but millions of people watch this movie, so millions of people live through these characters. So it's very important to pay attention to the psychological effects of movies. And this is something that I pay attention to, something that when I watch movies, how I watch movies, and I know I'm probably not the best person to watch movies with, because I'm really looking deep into them, really trying to figure out what they have to say. And so this was just a video that I was just trying to do something different. I don't know how it's going to come across, but please give me some feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think about this video. If you like this video, subscribe, share this video. If you don't like this video, if you hate this video, subscribe, and share, and maybe I can create more content that you can hate. So, I'm the Hood Mystic signing out, and if you want to reach me, you know where to reach me, www.hoodmystic.com. Peace.